they had to go through all these things, and God commended them and saying, hey, look at these saints of old and how they persevered and how their faith carried them along, and they were mentioned as, as honorable and faithful servants. So their testimonies were used in the word to bring about encouragement. So do not be afraid to share testimony if you have one, for the benefit of the body. So I'll just give you a couple of seconds to think about that. Did anyone do any homework? Did anyone get a chance to look at any scriptures? You know what our discussion is today, right? Well, we're on the topic of the idea of hell. And we're taking the approach of, we're looking at the Old Testament to see if the idea that we have of hell today is consistent throughout the Bible, in the Old and the New Testament, as well as some Inter-Testamental Period. How many of you were able to look at the Old Testament and see if you could find any scriptures in the Old Testament to suggest the place that hell is a place of torment, of eternal fire, these kind of things? Anyone did any other homework? Does anyone have any verses that you want to look at today where it suggests that hell was this type of place in the Old Testament? We looked at quite a few last week, and there wasn't any that was presented that was portraying hell as this place of torment. But in fact, it portrayed this place called, what is the term in the Old Testament that we generally think of as hell? Sheol. So Sheol is this place in the Old Testament where we said was what? Basically the underworld, the place of the dead, the abode of the dead, the place where spirits went. And in fact, the Bible suggests or says that the righteous and the unrighteous went to Sheol, right? So this place is somewhere where all the dead would have gone when they died. Now, this word Sheol, and I'm going to give you a little heads up for the homework today, and I'll repeat it again later, but Sheol in the New Testament is what? What is the word used for Sheol in the New Testament? Do you know what the word for Sheol is in the New Testament? Hades, right? So it's the Greek word, because the New Testament is in Greek, right? The Old Testament is in Hebrew. So the Greek word that corresponds with Sheol is Hades. So I want you, for the homework for next week, and like I said, I'll repeat it toward the end, and more persons ahead. I want you to determine in the New Testament how many words are used for hell. Right? So we've already determined that Hades is one word used to describe this place in the Old Testament known as Sheol, the place of the dead where the spirits went to, and the righteous went, and the unrighteous. But there's another word used in the New Testament that speaks, that you see it as hell in your New Testament. There's another word that's used to describe hell, but you wouldn't know the difference if you read the English translation, because both are translated hell. And so the word Hades is one. Who could think of the other word? Who knows of the other word in the New Testament that speaks or refers to hell? No. In fact, the lake of fire is separate in Revelation, where death and Hades is cast into the lake of fire. So there's clearly something different between the lake of fire and hell. So there's another word that is used in the New Testament for the word hell other than Hades. And it's important to know the difference and the different places. And I'll let you know what the word is. And I want you as Bible students to look in the New Testament and to see the different uses or the verses where one is used versus the next. The word is Gehenna. So you will see in the New Testament the word translated Gehenna and the word translated Hades. And they're kind of two different things here. And you can do this by searching on Bible Gateway. I can give you a hint. How many of you use your computer to go to Bible Gateway? How many of you been there before? Go to Bible Gateway and type in the New Testament hell. And then type in the New Testament Hades. And see that there's different, depending on what translation. I use the NIV mostly. So I want you to check it out. You'll see that hell is used for one. And then Hades is used, and they don't mix it. So I want you to look at that for next week, okay? Now today, I want to look a little bit about some of the idea of where this place of torment kind of derived from. And as you would see in the Old Testament, Sheol is kind of a neutral place until you reach some of the prophetic books. All right, and we're going to look at some of those. Let's go. You're just moving through. So Isaiah 66. So we're going to start looking at Isaiah 66, verse 22 to 24. And when you'll see this, the last sentence in there, for their worm shall not die, their fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrence to all flesh. So this is kind of like almost the first instance where hell, or this place, I would say, or where it talks about this place of torment or fire and the worms not dying. This is kind of like the first place where it talks about that. But does that refer to Sheol? And let's read it. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make shall remain before me, says the Lord, so shall your offspring and your name remain. From new moon to new moon, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship me, declares the Lord. Now, just to clarify something, this seems to be like in the new reign of Christ, right? And people may argue that, hey, this Sabbath, that means we observing Sabbath again. But if you look at different translations, it would simply say, instead of new moon by new moon and Sabbath to Sabbath, it just says monthly and weekly. That's basically the interpretation. Every month, right? And every week. So, because Sabbath basically just means seventh. So it's saying every seventh day, meaning every week. And the new moons is a monthly cycle. So they mean every month and every week. Right? So monthly and weekly, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares the Lord. And they shall go out and look on the dead bodies of the men who have rebelled against me. So remember inside the Bible, it talks about this war that's coming, and the wicked will be destroyed and they will be killed when they come against the Lord and his people. And this kind of suggests that this may be in that time frame where there's literal dead bodies there. Men who have rebelled against me, for their worm shall not die, their fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrence to all flesh. So it's suggesting that this is actually a physical thing. Physical dead bodies, but then the worm shall not die, and their fire shall not be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrence to all flesh. You see this forever language, or in terms of it will not die. It doesn't mean that the people will be in these bodies will be there like zombies and not dying, right? Although the worm shall not die, it's just talking about the everlasting consequence of these things. All right? How many of you get that? Any questions so far? Clear as mud, right? See, some of you are confused. You're scared to ask a question. But let's move forward, and you can come. If you have any questions, you can come back. Now, let's look a little bit about the intertestamental period. This is the period. What is the intertestamental period I'm talking about here? Yes, Regine. Wonderful, beautiful. Intertestamental, yes. Between the period, a few hundred years between the Old Testament writings of Malachi and the New Testament of what? Matthew. There you go. So there are some books inside there that kind of influenced the New Testament belief about this place of torment. Because if you look at the Old Testament, you don't really get this clear picture of Sheol being a place of torment, or even hell being a place of torment, or any torment really. But then you see this come about in the New Testament. And you see that the major, or the person who uses hell the most as a torment place is who? Jesus, yes. He's the one who uses this terminology of hell being a place of torment the most, or this place of fire and torment. Now, how many of you have heard about the Book of Enoch? Right, this intertestamental book, and it's one of the books that are thought to be written in that intertestamental period, and it's a very interesting book, and it's a book that's used by a lot of scholars to get the mindset of those who are in that period. Sorry about that. So I want to just read a few passages from the Book of Enoch. And you'll see that some of the passages sound similar to some of the passages in the New Testament, like Jude and Peter, and even when Jesus is talking about the place of torment and whatnot. And this place of Gehenna, well, let's not get into Gehenna yet, but as we shared this last week, didn't we? So basically, Gehenna, and we're going to get into this part of it, the Old Testament part of it. Gehenna was this valley in Jerusalem that in the Old Testament, these people used to worship these pagan gods and offer their children as sacrifices to the god of Molech. And it was a place of fire, okay? And Jeremiah, he kind of talks about this place. And this is kind of like one of the other instances where this valley of the sons of Hinnom, which is where Gehenna comes from, okay? So Gehenna is really the valley of the son of Hinnom. So it's talking about the same place. Hell in the New Testament is talking about the same valley of the sons of Hinnom. And let's look at what it says here. Jeremiah is kind of warning God's people about this, I guess, upcoming judgment that's coming in the future. And he ties it into this valley where they used to burn sacrifices of children. And it says, "For the sons of Judah have done evil in my sight, declares the Lord. They have set their detestable things in the house that is called by my name to defile it." Give me a little more volume on this mic, please. Now, where's this place that they're talking about? Where's the detestable place? Where did he call his name? The house that is called by my name to defile it. The house that was where his name dwelt was what? Temple. The temple. So this temple was the holy place of God. And he said, my name dwells there. A little too much. So his temple was supposed to be a sacred place for him. But he says they have done evil in his sight, and they have defiled his holy place. And they have built the high places of Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire. So they used to offer their sons and daughters to these gods in the fire to get favor with these gods. However, they were saying that God, Yahweh, was their God. You see why this would make Yahweh upset? Because he is their provider, he is their protector, he is the one of creator, he is the most high. But yet they decided to go to a false god, pagan gods, to offer their children up. I guess they figured the children were the most. When you go before God, you have to offer something that was valuable to you. So they offered their children up as sacrifices for them to be blessed by these gods. And it says, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire which I did not command, nor did it come into my mind. Like this, I never even thought of this. Now, of course, God knows everything, but he's kind of relay his thoughts to him. Like these kind of things shouldn't even be thought of. So, and then he says, therefore, behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when it will no more be called Topheth, or the valley of the son of Hinnom, but what? The valley of slaughter. For they will bury in Topheth, because there is no room elsewhere. And the dead bodies of this people will be food for the birds of the air, and for the beasts of the earth, and none will frighten them away. And I will silence in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness. The voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, for the land shall become a waste. So it's saying because they offered these sacrifices in this valley of Topheth, or the son of Hinnom, he says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn that into the valley of slaughter. And I'm going to turn this into a wasteland for your people because you've disobeyed me. And this wasteland was sort of as a fiery place of torment and a wasteland as punishment for Israel's and Judah's disobedience and because they followed after these false gods and pagan gods and denied the true God. And this is where the term or the thinking of Gehenna came from. This is different than what we think of as Sheol. Because Sheol is this place in the spirit realm where all the dead go, but this place of Gehenna was actually a physical place. But he used this as a demonstration, as a type or foreshadowing of things to come, punishment for the wicked. And it's confirmed in 2 Chronicles. King Ahaz, it says, Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, and he did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father David had done. But he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. He even made metal images for the Baals, and he made what? Offerings in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burned his sons as an offering, according to the abominations of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. And he sacrificed and made offerings on the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. So this king, right? This king of Judah, who was supposed to be God's people, he decided to make these sacrifices and whatnot and deny God. And God is saying, you carry on wasting the people who you drove out. I gave you all this promised land, this land of Canaan, to drive out the wickedness of these places and to possess the land. But guess what? You've fallen right after them. And he says, you are falling into the same abominable practices as they do. And unfortunately, many Christians are doing the same thing today. They fall into the same abominable practices that the world is doing. And we are supposed to be set apart as believers to serve the Most High God. And it repeats itself in 2 Chronicles 13. So that's kind of the backdrop of where this valley of Gehenna, this valley of slaughter, this place of fiery torment came about. A physical place, as we see in the pictures. Now let's look a little bit let's look at Enoch. And there's a few passages in here that suggest a place of fiery torment. And it's very interesting when you look at these passages. We should be able to get through them today. So what happens is, in the book of Enoch, these particular angels are taking Enoch, because he was a righteous man. He was considered a very righteous man, and God was showing him and revealing a lot of things to him. And he was taking on like a spiritual journey through the spiritual realm by these particular angels. And let's read chapter 10. It says, "And again the Lord said to Raphael," let's see how smart you are. Raphael was considered one of the archangels in the book of Enoch. What do you think Raphael means? Or what do you think his job was responsible? What do you think one of the things that he may have been responsible for in God's kingdom? Well, he may have been a bouncer, I don't know, you know. But let's look at his name. Let's look at his name and remember the names of God, and let's see if we could come up with what his name may mean or what this angel was responsible for. Say it again. There you go. Because why? Rapha is the God who heals. El, you'll see most of the archangels end with El, means God, right? So healer of God, or God's healer, or whatever the case may be. And if you were to, how many of you read the book of Tobit? Say that again? No, the book Tobit that is in the Catholic Bible. I think it's in the Catholic Bible. It's part of the Apocrypha.
Is that what Lord of the Rings is based off of?
No, that's not that. But I understand how you could get to that, you know. But anyway, in the book of Tobit, just to cut a long story short, the angel Raphael came down, took human form, and was guiding this Tobit along the way for his mission. But the important thing is, I want to highlight, he was the one who healed. I think his father, if I remember correctly, went blind, and he had to Raphael told him what to do. It's very strange to me, but cut some fish and take some of the insides and make a potion and rub it on his eyes, and he healed him. And this is what Raphael did. So anyway, Raphael is supposedly the angel responsible for God's healing. All right, now, that doesn't say that other angels aren't responsible for God's healing or anything else. That just says that was one of his primary functions, okay? Anyway, let's move on. And it says, "And again the Lord said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot." Who's Azazel? Who's that, Peter? Yes, he's one of the main fallen angels, or the lead of the fallen angels in Genesis chapter 6, apparently. Right? That's a good question. You said if he's the devil? There's some scholars who believe that Azazel is actually Satan. Right? So that's interesting. And it says, and he's telling Raphael to bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness and make an opening in the desert, which is in Durael, and cast him therein. And place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever. and cover his face that he may not see light. And on the day of the great judgment, he shall be cast into the fire. Sounds like Satan, eh? Now, later on in the story, they plead to God for mercy, and he allows them out of this pit, and that's why he roams today. Because you might wonder, okay, if he's still in the pit, then what? Why is he still bothered by the Satan character? Right? Because Satan is not his name. Satan just means adversary or accuser. Satan is not his real name. Yes?
So if Adam is Satan, right?
Uh-huh.
What the heck is Lucifer?
Well, Lucifer is just another name or title that was given to Satan. Right? So like you say, son of the morning. So these are just titles that were given to this being. All right? But you see the imagery of cast into the fire, because you don't see this kind of talk really in the Old Testament. But you see this in the Inter-Testamental Period, but cast into the fire. Then we move on to Enoch chapter 21, where he's taken to this underworld place. And we mentioned it a little bit last week. I think Sister Claudia talked about different levels of hell, or at least questioned it, or mentioned it. And in Enoch 21 it says, and I proceeded to where things were chaotic. And I saw there something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a place chaotic and horrible. And there I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it, like great mountains and burning with fire. Now, does he mean actual stars? What do you think he means by stars? Sorry? Angels. Yeah, it's angels, falling angels. Then I said, this is Enoch saying now. Then I said, for what sin are they bound, and on what account have they been cast in hither? Then said Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me and was chief over them, and said, Enoch, why dost thou ask, and why art thou eager for the truth? These are the number of the stars of heaven, which have transgressed the commandment of the Lord, and are bound here till 10,000 years, the time entrailed by their sins are consummated. So now you see some imagery where angels are bound in this place. All right? So what New Testament passage does this sound like to you? Where they're in chains or in this place where they're kept for Jude and 2 Peter, or 1 Peter, 1 or 2, I can't remember. You see, so this is some intertestamental literature where you could see their mindset was along these lines. And then it says, and from thence I went to another place which was still more horrible than the first, than the former. And I saw a horrible thing, a great fire there which burnt and blazed, and the place was cleft as far as the abyss, being full of great descending columns of fire. Neither its extent or magnitude could I see, nor could I conjecture. Then I said, how fearful is the place, and how terrible to look upon. Then Uriel answered me, one of the holy angels who was with me, and said unto me, Enoch, why hast thou such fear and affright? And I answered, because of this fearful place, and because of the spectacle of the pain. And he said, this is the place, this place is the prison of the angels, and here they will be imprisoned forever. So you see more literature that speaks about these angels, or these fallen angels, and Satan and his angels being imprisoned or tormented forever. And in the next chapter, it refers to those human beings now. It's talking about those human spirits. So the previous chapter was talking about the falling angels and where they were going. And it says, and thence I went to another place, and he showed me in the west another great and high mountain, of hard rock, and there was in it 4 hollow places, deep and wide and very smooth. How smooth are the hollow places, and deep and dark to look at? And Raphael answered, one of the holy angels who was with me, and said unto me, these whole hollow places have been created for this purpose. What? That the spirits of the souls of the dead should assemble therein. Yes, or yea, that all the souls of the children of men should assemble there. Now, what does this resemble in the Old Testament? Where all the souls go? Sheol. And these places have been made to receive them till the day of their judgment, until their apportioned period, till the great judgment comes upon them. And it goes on to say, I saw the spirits of the children of men who were dead, and their voice went forth to heaven and made suit. I asked Raphael, the angel who was with me, and I said unto him, this spirit, whose is this whose voice goes forth and maketh suit? And he answered me, saying, this is a spirit which went forth from Abel, whom his brother Cain slew, and he makes his suit against him, till his seed is destroyed from the face of the earth, and his seed is annihilated from among the seed of men. Then I asked regarding it and regarding all the hollow places, why as one separated from the other? So this word talks about some separation of people, those who are in Sheol. And he showed me and answered me, these 3 have been made that spirits of the dead might be separated. So suggesting the separating in Sheol for the righteous and the unrighteous. And such a division has been made for the spirits of the righteous, in which there as the bright spring of water. So suggesting that the side in Sheol for the righteous, there's this bright spring of water. Now where does this kind of tie into the New Testament? There you go. Right? With Lazarus and the rich man, right? And such has been made for sinners when they die and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not been executed on them in their lifetime. Here their spirits shall be set apart in this great pain till the great day of judgment and punishment and torture. And just skip down, there shall be their spirits shall not be slain in the day of judgment, nor shall they be raised from thence. So it's kind of talking about or suggesting these different places in that intertestamental period, where kind of it shaped kind of the thinking of those coming into the New Testament. Now, the Valley of Hinnom, which we spoke about, is called basically an accursed valley. And in chapter 27, it says, then said I, for what object is this blessed land, which is entirely filled with trees, and then this accursed valley? So it's like comparing like this place with trees and abundance versus this accursed valley that's dry and barren and all that. Then Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me, answered and said, this accursed valley is for those who are cursed forever. Here shall all the accursed be gathered together, who utter with their lips against the Lord unseemly words, and of his glory speak hard things. Here shall they be gathered together, and here shall be their place of judgment. In the last days there shall be upon them the spectacle of righteous judgment in the presence of the righteous forever. Here shall the merciful bless the Lord of glory, the eternal King. Now, what verse in the New Testament does this kind of tie back into? In the last days there shall be upon them the spectacle of righteous judgment in the presence of the righteous forever. That sounds like a verse in Revelations, right? Before the holy angels, right? They would be tormented before the holy angels and before his presence. So, didn't want to get too much into those intertestamental books, but just to give you a feel of kind of how the thinking developed from the Old Testament going into the New Testament. And although in the Old Testament you can't really find a text that directly speaks about this place of torment and place of fire, by the time of the New Testament, it certainly was in the mindset of the people. And then when Jesus comes on the scene, he brings further revelation to it. And you'll see that when he speaks of it, this word Gehenna, he almost is the exclusive use of this word. Other than a use inside James, he uses this word as place of torment. But that is different than what is characterized as Sheol. Y'all see that? And then next week, when we look at the uses of hell in the New Testament, when you look at the two words that's used, Hades and Gehenna, you see that Hades is still being used as more of a neutral place, versus hell is this place of torment and fire. In the New Testament, when it talks about, when it's quoting the Old Testament, it says, "You will not leave my soul in Sheol." What word do you think he's using in the New Testament when it says, "You will not leave my soul in hell," or allow my to see corruption? Which word do you think he's referring to? You think he's talking about Gehenna? It has to be Hades, because this is a prophetic psalm of Jesus Christ. David spoke about it in the Psalms and is used in the New Testament to show that Jesus, when his soul went down, he went to Sheol. Or do you think that he went to the place of hell of torment? No. This place, Gehenna, is specifically used for punishment of the wicked. So that's why it's a bit confusing when you see just hell in the New Testament and you don't know exactly which word is being used. It's a little bit confusing. Also, you would think that, hey, Jesus, when the soul went down, it went down to this place of fiery torment. But it's referring to Hades, which is just translation of Sheol, this place, the abode of the dead. Any questions? Comments? Confusions? A bit much, eh? It is a heavy topic. It is a heavy topic.
So when Jesus went down to hell,
The hell that he went to is referred to as Sheol. Hades is Sheol. And Sheol, as we see in the Old Testament, is the place where the righteous and the unrighteous went. And it's not necessarily portrayed as a place of torment. Not necessarily. Yes, Brother Chastain.
What would be the difference between going to hell and going to the lake of fire?
Well, the lake of fire doesn't come up until like Revelation. So next week we're going to get more into the New Testament terminology, but clearly the lake of fire is portrayed as fire and a place of everlasting. It's an everlasting place. Let me just put it like that. And in Revelation, we talk about, you see where Satan, remember there's Satan, the false prophet, and the beast, and those three beings are specifically cast into the lake of fire, and talks about being tormented forever and ever and ever. And go ahead. Yes. If you're the wicked, right? The wicked definitely, after coming out of Sheol, right? their destiny. And in Revelation it says, for those whose names were not written in the book of life, they will be cast into the lake of fire. So the end result of Satan and his angels and the wicked is the lake of fire.
So Gehenna and the lake of fire presently is empty.
Gehenna, well, the lake of fire seems to be empty for sure, and I guess it's debatable whether the Gehenna, I would say that Gehenna is empty as well, but that could be debated, you know. That would be my take on it. But definitely, it doesn't suggest that anything is in the lake of fire as yet. It doesn't specifically say that. And at the end, hell and death will be thrown into the lake of fire at the final judgment. Someone else had a comment? Oh, Trisha, then Peter.
That's not good of the fact that we are one soul and spirit, so that's why when we go to hell, our soul is hell, and when we go to heaven, our spirit is hell.
Say that again.
You know, the verse that says we are one soul and spirit.
Right.
The separation of that, that's why. I mean, other than our sins, that's why when we go to hell, our soul is down in the Hades.
Well, I don't know if soul and spirit can be separated in that respect. Some debate, there's two parts, body and soul and spirit are one. And then some debate is body, soul, and spirit. But I don't see any clear scriptures to separate soul and spirit from the presence of hell or heaven. If that makes sense. I don't see it. I mean, I could be wrong.
I think it could be on the lines of what she's thinking, but in that the soul and the body has to come together in the final.
Yes, well, yes.
When the rapture takes
The-
place, when the two join hand in hand when Jesus comes.
Yeah, well, let's not say the rapture, let's say the resurrection, okay? Because we believe, right, it talks about the resurrection of the dead and the righteous. So both will be resurrected, it seems, to suggest in Scripture, that both the righteous and unrighteous will be resurrected, where soul and spirit join body, and they will be made whole, and then the judgment. So I think that is important, because when you get into when you look at and it's a big discussion on conditionalism, meaning that, let me see how I can put this. Let me ask a question before we get it. When those who go to hell, do you think that they would be giving a physical body in hell? Or is just tormenting of the soul and spirit? Because if you're resurrected of the wicked as well, that means that they would have a body as well. So are we saying that upon the resurrection of both righteous and unrighteous, the unrighteous will receive new bodies to match their soul, to go with their soul and spirit, and then be cast into hell in a physical form as well? Okay. Well, it has to be new. It has to be new. It has to be new, right? And I guess, I've listened to quite a bit of debates about it. It's very complicated, right? Because it suggests in Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, suggests that the righteous and the unrighteous will be resurrected, right? Right, and if it does, when you cast this body into hell, will everything be burned up? Because a physical body can't withstand. The physical body is only conditionally immortal, meaning that it's only immortal as long as it only has life as long as God provides it, but it's going to decay. So it gets very complicated. Yeah.
Oh, my body will be
Well, definitely, I think everyone believes that the righteous will be given a new body. But the question is, will the unrighteous be given a new body for the judgment? You see, most people don't think of that with the evil, with the wicked. And if that is the case, throwing a body into the lake of fire, how will it survive? Because that's where the whole debate comes to annihilation versus forever torment. You understand? They can't die. But would they have eternal life is the question, or would their body be sustained by God? It's very complicated. Yes, Peter, before I don't want to leave Peter out. Well, let's look at the Old Testament. Does anything in the Old Testament suggest that after when you go into Sheol, that you have consciousness of what's going on? What verse? No, that's the New Testament. That's the New Testament, right? But we can look at it as well. Yes, Ginger. And I know you used to come up with that. So the question is, what did he say? Why did you disturb my peace? So was he sleeping? Does it suggest that he was sleeping? What does the scripture say? What is the wording of it? What does it say?
Sounds like we have homework.
Yeah, that just means they went into the grave alive. They ended up in Sheol, yeah, but let me ask you a question. Can a physical body stay alive in Sheol? The Sheol is a spiritual place of the dead. It suggests that. There's no indication that a living physical body can survive in the realm of the dead. Right? So that voice doesn't say that they were in Sheol walking around with a live body. No, it just means that normally you go in the ground after you're dead. In their case, they were buried alive. That's all it said. Well, they would have seen Sheol after they would have died. But I don't think you can see Sheol as a physical place. It's suggested it's a spiritual place, and it's not a physical realm. You understand? So it's no way for them, I don't see any way for a physical body to go alive in Sheol because it's a spiritual realm. All right? So Sheol in the Old Testament is a lot of times used just to say to the dead, for the grave, I should say. All right? Now, of course, the grave is kind of the entranceway to Sheol. It means, it ain't even a physical entranceway. It just means when you die and are buried, you go further into a spiritual realm called Sheol. Your spirit and your soul go down into Sheol. All right? Well, the story of Lazarus suggests that he was conscious, and that's in the New Testament. But we have to look at the story of Lazarus very carefully and see what the point of this parable was supposed to be. See, a lot of times, and I'm not saying that discounts that, I'm just saying we have to look at when Jesus is telling a parable, let's not get sidetracked by all the little details. Let's get the meaning of the point of the parable, and when we discuss on our message today, I'm going to share at exactly a point that I had to learn about. Don't miss the point of the parable. All right, and I'm going to share a testimony, which was a teachable moment for me, that someone taught me this is what it meant, But during further study, I found that is not what it meant. And I'm going to share it in our sermon today. But Ginger, before we leave, go ahead.
Another point, I agree now, it's not the body that goes. But as a response, I think when Abel died, remember the Lord was like, told Cain that he could hear the blood of your brother crying out.
Yeah. But the question is that symbolic language or is that literal language? We can't take everything as literal, because his blood was not, my blood, the blood cried. The blood wasn't crying. We admit that, right?
Yeah, I agree with that, but I believe his spirit was, because when he goes, when he say, even though we can't go to the Testament yet, when we go to Revelation, remember the spirit, remember those saints that were, the martyrs that were killed.
Mm-hmm.
But they are petitioning, like when you go James, when they were petitioning God. So
Right.
they were speaking, so I believe there was a consciousness in the spirit.
Yeah. Well, the New Testament, we jump into the New Testament, and it does suggest in the New Testament, when Paul says to be absent from the body, to be present with the Lord, and if you're present with the Lord, I'm sure you're not sleeping. So it suggests in the New Testament that is probably the case. When you move on after the resurrection of Jesus, we kind of had a new shift. There was a shift. You understand? When Jesus died. So we just was kind of focused on the Old Testament, but we're going to look into the New Testament next week and start to get into things. Yeah, and he said, as the Psalm says, the dead know nothing, but then we also have to look at what is the point of that passage? The dead know nothing. Does it mean that they're not aware of anything, or that means that they can't tell you nothing because they dead? They don't know nothing, so in a sense consulting them. Right, so what does it mean? The Bible is very tricky, you know. And the Psalms are not literal. Psalms are poetic. Now, they do have some literalism in it, so I'm not saying that's not the point. But we have to look at what is the point the Scripture is trying to get across and not take everything so literal. All right? The trick is trying to balance that, figuring out what is the point, what he's trying to say literally versus what is symbolic language. All right? Well, that's a good question. Was he saying not to involve yourself in this practice is because you're interacting with demons, or is it you're actually interacting with the souls of the dead? So what was it that they were actually, do you think that they actually was able to call up people from the dead or speak their spirits? Or was it masquerading spirits? Okay. It's a good question, and most scholars are divided. Yeah, we have Darren. Darren gave me say, you all pass your time, right? But guess what? It's an important thing on that story with the witch of Endor. When she called him up, she was surprised. So it suggested to me that, hey, hold on, this may not have happened before like this. Hold on, I used to dealing with these spirits. A man of God, a spirit of God, a real spirit of the dead is coming. Maybe, I don't know. I've heard so much different arguments on both sides. Who knows? No, he said he perceived. It says, well, look at it. It says they perceived it was Saul. So what does that mean? All right. If you all want these donuts, y'all better go now because you got 5 minutes. So y'all take a break, have some donuts and coffee, and we'll start our next.